Okay, one quick audio check for the people that are on Zoom. How's the microphone over there? Because I do have a microphone at the laptop that might sound louder. Can some folks from the Zoom just give me a quick voice check? How's the audio?
Sounds great.
Okay, no need to switch audio then. We'll just go for it. Right. Well, I am super excited to be here and to talk to you all. I'm from Denver and I had quite an interesting flight last night coming in. The snow was great, but I'm really pumped to be here to share the stories and everything about AI automation as it relates to marketing, specifically for small teams. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get right into it. I'm really happy. We feel like we have extra time, which is great because I think there's going to be a ton of questions. Feel free to light up the chat room. We'll review those occasionally and jump into that. Okay, so first of all, big thank you to Betty for putting this together. Really appreciate it. We met, what was it, a couple months ago in last year. You were traveling in Denver.
Yep.
And I was giving a similar conversation talk about generative AI related to sales operations. And I think you really liked a lot of the examples. And you said you got to come to Cincinnati and talk about this with the AMA group. And so here we are. So thank you so much.
The story says, well, I think it's in Cincinnati. I know it's in Ohio. I'll just pop in here. That's why we kind of switched the date on this. Weddings in Cleveland. So he's still instead of joining us virtually. So thank you for coming still.
Thank you.
And I learned a lot, and it opened my eyes to hear him speak. And I just, we are always looking for some amazing presenters. And so anyway, he flew in here and now is driving to Cleveland, which he had actually a hard time getting a car. So I'm going to drive him to Mason so he can get his rental car and drive to Cleveland.
My goodness.
It's been a saga, and I'm put all that aside. I'm still really excited to chat about marketing automation, AI, and all the things. It really is. I love talking about this stuff. So feel free to jump in with questions as we get into it.
Yeah, he loves questions.
I do love questions. I want to make this as interactive as possible. So I'll start by just saying that the takeaway, what I want you to really remember from our talk today is that there was this period of time when we had the Mad Men era of marketing. There was the height of creativity and storytelling. Visual components were so important. And then somewhere along the way, over the last 15, 20 years, we've all become this sort of pseudoscience, marketing, metric-driven professionals who focus on conversion rate optimization, click-through rates, and all these numbers. Where's the creativity? Where has that gone, right? And that is, I want to argue, something that is possible thanks to generative AI. It's a new and different kind of creativity. And I really want to unpack that today because I feel like there is going to be almost a renaissance of great marketing campaigns that are going to be possible. And so that's what I want to focus on. We're going to really go deep on it. Just so I have a sense of the audience here today, how many of you already use generative AI in your day-to-day workflows and operations? Just by a show of hands. About a third of the room, a half raise. Okay, a third of the room here. I assume that'll be similar with the folks on video. I see some hands up as well. Thank you for that. Okay, so I think I'm still going to do a little bit of level setting so that we're all on the same page. It's just going to take an extra 5 minutes to make sure that we're all together, and then we'll ramp up the sophistication as we go through. Buckle up. It's going to be 7 use cases that you can start using today, tomorrow. I'm really going to focus on practical use cases. Now, the other thing about this conversation is I'm not selling you anything. I don't have a product to sell you. I don't have anything of that sort. So really excited about that too. So we can just focus on the learning. All right. I already talked a lot about what we're going to do today, but the key part is really going to be the use cases. That's where we're going to focus a lot of our time. And I'll start off by just introducing myself. So I'm Rodrigo Fuentes. People call me Rod, and I was the founder of Listen Loop. It was a marketing technology advertising software that I was fortunate enough to build, grow, and eventually have it acquired in 2019. I was deep in the plumbing of everything display advertising. down to the packet level of what happens when you bid on an impression that you want to put out there for your brand. And after the acquisition, I spent the remaining 5 last years really focusing on artificial intelligence, whether classical AI or now more recently, generative AI, building products in the space for the last 3 years. Now, what I want to focus on is what the heck is generative AI? So this is where we're going to level set first. And you have this very classical definition here. We're going to review it briefly, but we're going to really just unpack it together. It's a system that can generate new content, text, images, audio, but really it's based on patterns and data that has been fed into the system during the training phase of that system. Now, what the heck does all that mean? Let me give you a concrete example. So I want you to visualize this bag of marbles, and each marble has a word on it. Okay, some words include the, boy, and went. And every time the system wants to generate content for you, it's as if this robotic arm is reaching into this bag of marbles, and it's going to pull out the next word. Now, if we did this randomly, it would produce absolute gibberish, right? Table, painting, man, the, went. What? That doesn't make any sense. But it turns out that if you just attach probabilities to the next word that is going to be drawn, you can have it mathematically produce relevant, interesting things. And that is what a generative AI system is. That's it. And so if we look at a sentence and say, now we're not just going to attach probabilities, we're going to change the probability of the next word that is going to be pulled out based on the previous words that have come before it. So if I say the boy went to the, what's a good word that might come next?
Store.
The store. How about you? You got your mouth full. How about you?
Playground.
Playground. That's a good one. One more.
Shopping center.
Shopping center. Great. Those are all very likely possibilities. So is hospital. Now, we hope not, but hospitals also in the spectrum of words that are possible. And that is exactly what these systems are doing. The boy went to the is the context for the system. It's going to go in, draw the next word. And the probability is that hospital is maybe 5% probable. And playground, someone said that, is 40% likely. And that's all that's happening behind the scenes. Now, it's doing it over and over and over, thousands of times per second to create a stream of output. And every time it puts out the next word, it goes back, adds that context, draws the next word. That's all that's happening in a generative AI system. Now, why do we share this? I want to give you the background to this because this helps us understand why prompts and the context you provide to the system is so important. If we were to change it and say the boy went, the boy was out on the range living in Denver, that would change some of the possibilities. Maybe he's going to go hang out with the buffalo that are back there and seriously in my backyard. Okay, so now that we're all experts on generative AI, we're going to cover the framework that we're going to be reviewing throughout the use cases just to get us on the same page. The framework is pretty simple. We have some inputs. This could be text, audio, images. Then we're going to have prompts. This is the part that is equivalent to the boy went to the. It is the context you're going to provide to the system so that it knows what direction you want to take the output. Then we're going to have some kind of output. Output can be emails, it can be summaries, it can be information, whatever you want the output to be, and you will tell the system what you want the output to be. So let's do a quick example. For the prompt itself, you're going to generally identify the prompt in a few different pieces. One piece is you're going to give it an identity. You are a helpful marketing assistant. You are a LinkedIn social influencer. You are a sales representative. You're then going to identify, for example, the input that you might provide it. So it has a heads up when you reference it later. You'll give it a task. You'll tell it what you want it to do. You'll give it context about the task. And finally, you'll give it instructions about the task, including how you want the output to look. I want an email summary. I want an outline, however you want that output. So a playful example is, you are Eminem, the world's best rapper. Here's some context about my company. Now write a cold outbound email to this person, Bob. Instructions, keep it concise, rhyme as much as you can, limit to 800 characters. And you get something like this. Hey, Bob, stuck in the rut with cold email mutts. jumped in the intro hub, cut through the guts. Anyway, you can see I didn't have a career in rap, so the point is I actually did send out a campaign like this early in February or March of 2023. The responses were very good. It's very engaging. It's very different. Now, here's the thing. Within about 6 months, the reply rates dropped on that campaign. Why? Because everyone started doing it as well. And so we have this cycle of innovation that also gets snuffed out very quickly. And that's why I want to keep coming back to the more creative you are in using these systems, the more of an edge you have against the market in actually getting engagement and replies and connecting with an audience. And that's where we're going to come up with this constantly innovating cycle that we're going to find ourselves in. Okay, so the table has been set. We're now ready to get into the use cases. I just want to get a quick pulse. Are we interested in seeing the broad spectrum? Because I got 6 or 7 use cases we could touch on. Or would you prefer that I go deeper into each one just to gauge the audience? Anyone want to mention anything about that, or should I just go with whatever?
I think the broader to
Broader.
understand.
Yeah,
what
right.
the use cases, right?
Okay,
I would go with
sounds good. We'll go 7, which means I'll go a little lighter on each one, and then during the Q&A, we can dive into any particular ones. All right. The first 3, I want to give you an example of how to increase the level of sophistication on a task. It's going to be the same task 3 times, but I'm going to show it to you in 3 levels of sophistication. The first one's going to be ad hoc, the second one's going to be batch, the third one's going to be automated. But it'll ground us that we're using the same concept over and over. So this is the task that we have. We need to prepare our sales teams for a call. Now we're marketing operators here, but I also heard some sales operations people on the call. We all know that when sales goes into a call, they need to be prepared. They need to map that prospect to a user persona. They need to have battle cards at the ready. They need to have great discovery questions that will help them identify whether or not this person is qualified to buy our product. So, sounds very easy. That's the job. The problem is that it's extremely time consuming to do that. We're all in back-to-back meetings. Who has time for that, right? Now, what we want to do is the following. Let's go with our crawl use case. This is going to be an ad hoc usage of generative AI to help prepare for a call. We're going to start with the inputs and our usual framework. It's going to be prospect and company data. Now let's walk through each of these steps together. The first one is the inputs. The inputs are quite simple. It's going to be the prospect's website that you can copy paste. It's going to be the prospect's LinkedIn profile and any other data you have about the prospect, perhaps in your CRM, marketing automation platform. And now you're going to take those and you're going to put them into a prompt. And the prompt is here. Don't worry about it. You're going to get the slides. You can see it later. I just want to call out some of the important parts. It's identifying the role for the generative AI. You're a sales representative. I'm going to give you information about the person I'm going to meet. You are going to use the information that I have pasted below that we fetched earlier. And I want you to prepare a dossier about this prospect. I want you to prepare discovery questions. I want you to prepare battle card preparation so that the sales representative is ready for this meeting. And what comes out on the other side, based on the instructions that I've given it, is an outline, preparing that salesperson for the meeting, right? Industry trends, questions to ask, just be ready. And the salesperson can review this 5 minutes, 10 minutes before the meeting, just to get hydrated on that conversation and really knock it out of the park. Now, this is ad hoc in the sense that every time you have a meeting, you have to go out, copy paste a bunch of information, copy paste your prompt, put it in, and you get something out. That's okay. That is an entry-level use case for a generative AI system. And if you're one level smidge above that, maybe you create a custom GPT. We can come back to that. But now, most salespeople, hopefully, have 5, 10, 15 meetings a week that they have to handle, maybe more. You can see that this is quite a pain in the butt to have to keep coming back to the chat window, put all this information in. It's not very efficient. So the next level of sophistication is to batch process the exact same use case. Now, what does that mean? In this example, we're going to download or export our calendar. Simple enough. We use Google Calendar, Microsoft Calendar. If you export that, you end up getting something that looks like this. It's a file called ICS, and inside of it has all of this text. That text is actually structured and outlines all of your calendar entries. The attendees, the subject line, the meeting description, all of that information. With a very simple script in a code that you could run, and you could take this and you could literally just put it in and run it. What comes out after you give it that text, that ICS file, is a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet now has all of your meetings as rows, okay? And the columns are all the details about each of those meetings. That's interesting. Now what we could do is enrich each of the attendees who are going to be at the meeting. And enrichment can happen in HubSpot, Marketo Adobe, Apollo, your favorite systems, whichever one. What does enriching mean? It means that for a given email address, we're going to fetch known information about that person, such as their industry, the company they work at, the description of the company, and other elements like that. Then what we're going to do is use that information to create a meeting summary, as I described earlier. We're going to grab that information, run it through the prompt, and you'll see it in the slides. This is the prompt here on the bottom right. It's the same prompt I already showed you. And what comes out of this is essentially the different summaries for each individual row, right? It's got the industry context, it's got the questions that I want to ask, and it's now done on a per row basis. So, okay.
I'm trying to admit that first.
Oh, okay, I admitted it. Anytime they come in, I've been hitting admit, so it's all good. So now why is this better? Well, it's better because you have, and there we go. It's better because you have it at least batched now. You're not going one by one. You're taking your entire calendar a week or 2 weeks in advance, and you're running them all together, and now you're prepared for the week. Salespeople can now come visit the spreadsheet and have that information at their fingertips. But you can still see that someone still has to go out, every Monday, Sunday night, run the batch process. Not great. How do we go to run? Same example. Now I want to automate the whole thing. Okay. We're going to take the Google Calendar file, but this time we're going to connect it to a system like Zapier. Zapier is a low-code, no-code tool that allows you to automatically perform certain actions and steps. Let's take a look at that together. So we begin in Zapier with a Google Calendar event. Every time a calendar invite is created in your calendar, it's going to kick off this workflow. We're going to connect that Google Calendar now to a filter step that takes out all of the attendees one by one from that list in each calendar invite. Then we're going to do the enrichment step, just like we said before, using this Apollo step inside of Zapier. We're going to then pipe that to a ChatGPT step, which uses the exact same prompt we already reviewed and pipes all the information from the enrichment into that step. Finally, we're going to connect it to a Gmail block that then fires off an email to the individual salesperson, the owner of the calendar. Okay. And for extra bonus points, here's an example of what that email looks like. You could format it more beautifully if you want, but essentially it's the exact same content now delivered to the email the moment that the calendar invite is created. No humans involved. It was programmed once. The automation just runs every time a calendar invite happens.
You know what this reminds me of? And I know I'm dating myself. Remember mail merge? I used to take, all the names and just mail merge it all together and you create, I love this.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll do one more better. We're going to connect it to Slack or Teams to send a message again to that individual calendar owner 15 minutes before the meeting, so that they have a nice summary about what meeting they're about to have and just get quickly caught up and prepared. Okay, so I'm happy to play the video to kind of show everything that's happened. I'm going to give you the slides. You can come back and watch all that. It's just going to walk you through every single one of those steps I just mentioned. And it'll show a live demo of someone creating a calendar invite and running through it. So these are the 3 examples. It's the same prompt, but you keep increasing the level of automation so that we save time, so that we save all the minutia and the tedious tasks that take us off task from the really creative human element of our roles and our jobs. Now that we have a basic example that we've seen repeatedly, I want to go broad now instead of deep and look at a couple of different use cases more aligned to what we're doing every day, all day. And the first one is we're gonna start. Let me first say, I should have said first that these examples all come from conversations with people like you. I love doing this talk because every time I do it, I get 2 or 3 more new examples. So afterward or whenever you're ready, come to me and tell me, I really want to do this. And we can brainstorm how that's possible. So these are real examples from people. One is streamline lead scoring. All right, we all have lead scoring somewhere in our Marketo or HubSpot. And the job to be done really is, how do we know which leads are good that we should pass on to sales? Which ones need to be nurtured? Which ones just need to be kicked out of our systems because they're costing us more money and putting us over the next tier of our subscription license, right? And the pain here is that traditional scoring mechanisms are kind of a swag. You just ballpark it. It's 10 points if they're this industry, 15 points if they submitted this form, and we're kind of guessing and we'll figure it out. So what if AI can help us get quantitative and qualitative insights on every lead that's going into our funnel? And that's what we want to do today. So the inputs are going to be a prospect list from your marketing automation system. We're going to look at the prompt, and the output is going to be a filtered list. Every prospect that goes through will be judged. Now the inputs are going to be, like I mentioned, it could be your HubSpot, Marketo, and just so that we're all on the same page, I'm going to convert those into a spreadsheet. So we could all look at it, and independent of which system you use, you know that you have prospect data. Its rows are people, columns are attributes that they have. And then what we're going to do is feed that into a prompt. And the prompt is going to say, you're a sales development rep. Your goal is to identify relevant leads. Here is my ICP, ideal customer profile. Here's information about that specific prospect, their job title, the company, the industry, what assets they had visited, what pages they have visited, any information you have about that particular prospect, which you believe will help the system identify whether it is relevant or not. And we're going to then run that on a per row basis, essentially enriching the data to produce a new output in a column that we can then pipe back into HubSpot. And the output essentially will look like, again, a spreadsheet once you run it, and it'll say, these 3 leads were good. The red ones, they're not a fit for various reasons. Now, what are the reasons? What does that look like? If we zoom in on one row so that we're on the same page, it'll say something like this, right? It'll say, is it qualified? No. The system gave it a score of 5 out of 10 and a brief rationale as to why, right? In this particular use case, this is an SDR, positive. That's who I wanted to target. But their industry is unrelated to the ones that I want to go after. Right now, programming that in HubSpot is very hard because you need to create all of the different possible permutations of industries and the ones that match, the ones you do want, the ones you don't want, and that takes a lot of time. Instead, what you do is you offload that processing to generative AI to understand through rules and human language what you're looking for, and for it to come back and say, that's a match, it's not a match, here's the reason why. Okay. Now, let's go to another use case. In this use case, we're going to look at personalized lead follow-ups. And the job here is that we all have to send that email after someone submits a form. Hey, here's your ebook, thanks a lot. They're often pretty generic, kind of low engagement. Let's see how we can kind of jazz those up. We're going to take the CRM data, any contact activity data as inputs. We're going to run them through a series of prompts and processes and produce an output that is very personalized to that individual. Now the inputs. This is Marketo's Adobe product. It's the same thing, whether it's Autopilot, HubSpot, etc. Right? You have data about the prospect because they have visited your website, they have visited landing pages, they've gone to your forms, they have submitted forms. You take all that data, again, you enrich it, and you pass it through a prompt. The prompt is going to be, you are an AI marketing assistant, you're going to help me craft this engaging follow-up email based on and the data that you have available about them, right? The company, the industry, demographics, and you give it the rules that you want it to follow, including, of course, you pipe in the information that you have available. So now when people are going to your beautiful landing page where you have your form, you're putting out the ebook, the white paper, etc., and someone fills it out, let's say Maria from Iron Buffalo, a local heavy truck repair company in Denver. She comes, she fills out the form. Normally she would get this pretty generic email. Here's your asset, here's your ebook, download it. Instead, what we're going to do is using, let's say, HubSpot in this flow chart. This is using the HubSpot workflow automation tool within that software, and it pretty much exists in all marketing automation products. We're going to take that first trigger, which is the form submission. We're going to run it. We're going to send a webhook out to a third party that we own. It's our server, and it's going to do the processing step where it takes all the information about the contact. We're going to run that through the prompt. The prompt is then going to produce the output that we want specifically for Maria. We're going to use it and send it back to HubSpot to update a specific field on that contact that says, when Maria downloads this asset, this is what we want it to say. The workflow is going to wait and pause until it receives that information. Once it gets it, it'll go to the final step and actually send the email. So instead of a generic email, the system is going to generate something like this. Hey, Maria, thanks for checking out this asset. Because your company, Iron Buffalo, specializes in heavy-duty truck repair, I thought you might find this other ebook we have useful to you, right? It's related to your area, the leads that you go after. We've seen it work well for other truck repair shops, etc. Now, if you have been working inside of marketing automation platforms and have the dominoes of 20, 30 workflows to try to reproduce this, you know how much effort it takes to build this, maintain it, and then if you have to change it, it's a nightmare, right? And so being able to set up one and allow the routing step, the creativity step to happen through generative AI, and then simply send the text to the right person is truly a big leap forward in terms of saving ourselves time while allowing us to create that really deeply personalized and engaging email that very sophisticated Fortune 500s have armies of teams to do this before generative AI was possible. And then, of course, once you actually get it out there, it's now personalized. Everything else is the same. It's just the text has been updated. Okay. In this example, we're going to take that similar use case, but now it's going to be for an outbound use case. The previous example was when someone submits a form, they come to us, we process something, we send them an asset. Now, I know a lot of the sales and marketing teams are doing effectively an outbound version of this where they go to ZoomInfo or Apollo, they identify a bunch of leads, and they say, we want to email them. Okay, but if you do that, and you send everyone the same generic email, good luck. It's going to get caught up in spam because the systems today are so good at detecting the fact that the same domains have been sending the same message across to many different recipients, right? So what we need to do is personalize the emails, not only because it's better and engaging for the recipient, but also because we need to not get caught in the spam trap. So how do we do that? Very similarly, we're going to take CRM data, contact activity data, anything that we have about our prospects. We're going to feed it through a series of prompts that I'm going to show you. And the output are going to be personalized emails that you then put into whatever automation system you want. Apollo, Smart Lead, Instant Lead, etc. So you're familiar with this now. The inputs are all the data you have. Let's look at the prompts. In this prompt, you're a sales development rep, and you're going to do some pre-call research. Now, in this example, this prompt is special because I'm actually going to give it an agentic instruction to go out and research information about this prospect. Go out to their website and determine what they sell. Then identify their 3 most likely target personas. Then output back a list of who they target. Now, what am I going to do with that? These are my prospects that I go after. It's SDRs, account executives. And what I'm figuring out is who do they sell to? And now for every person that I want to email, I have a list of who they try to target. Okay. Then I'm going to take that list, I'm going to put it into another prompt, just chaining it automatically that says, I'm going to give you my base email template. I'm going to give you the personas that my prospect is targeting. And I'm going to give you my value proposition. And this is one of the superpowers of generative AI. If I give you these three things and tell you to mash them up into one email, it does a fantastic job at that because I'm giving it a lot of context and it's taking that context and stitching it and weaving it together. So then I give it the template, the persona, the value prop, and some instructions about how I want it to output this information. The result is that for every prospect in my list, it specifically identifies, hey, you're targeting CFOs. Here's how my value proposition relates to who you are targeting. Let's talk. Now I've done two things. One, created a more engaging email that's relevant specifically to them, tying the value prop to their job title. And two, I've created a very big amount of variance on the text that's being sent through the email in order to avoid spam traps. Okay. We're not done. We're going to tell the system to go back to the website and determine who their competitors are. With the competitor list now for every prospect, I'm going to run that through another prompt that says, now write me a subject line that somehow mentions a competitor. Because now I'm also going to create an engaging subject line. Because when you look at your competitor's name in the subject line, it kind of, oh, what? You recognize your competitors, right? It makes you raise an eyebrow. It makes you say, what's this about? To increase the open rate and the likelihood that they actually engage with the email. And again, avoid spam traps. Because a lot of people will personalize the body of the message and they forget to personalize the subject line. And if you send 1,000 emails in the same subject line, chances are it's going to end up in spam. So take that information, pop it through, and we run these subject lines individualized to every prospect on that list. Okay, we're coming into the home stretch, then we can really get into some Q&A. In this example, we have the job of identifying which conversations across all the different forums and social media sites that the management or thought leaders in our organization want to engage, right? If cold email is getting harder and harder and harder due to the lower deliverability that's out there, what we're seeing is an increase of thought leadership, engagement on these kinds of forums where our prospects hang out, consume content. But the reality is that finding the relevant pieces of information to engage in is so hard. It's very time-consuming. Doom scrolling through Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn to find that one, oh, finally, here's a conversation that I want to be involved with. Let's comment. That's often too much effort for most management or thought leaders at the organization to actually do. So instead, we're going to have AI help us with that. As inputs, we're going to take information from forum or social media site that is relevant to our audience. We're going to pass it through some prompts. We're going to create output that is the URL of that post and some sample comment to give some inspiration for our thought leader who's going to be posting this on their account. So we visit Reddit, we visit LinkedIn, and here's the thing. These systems, for the most part, they're not really made to extract out all this information, right? They're walled gardens on purpose. But incredibly, if you have ever tried highlighting all and copying, what you get out is a massive soup of text that looks completely unstructured. Look, it's all just random words in whatever order they have come in from that site. But that's okay for generative AI. This would be impossible for us to parse. By passing this first through a very lightweight text processing step that's identified here, again, you can just take this and run it. You don't even have to understand this. What happens as the output of that unstructured text, when you feed it in through this code, what comes out is just that structured spreadsheet view of all of the copy pasted content from Reddit, from LinkedIn. Now with all of those rows, now we can do that familiar kind of processing you have now seen throughout this presentation, right? For each row, we have an author, we have content, we have how many likes and engagement they had at that moment in time. Okay, that's exciting. Now we can feed that through a prompt, right? I'm going to tell you, you are an expert social marketing assistant, and your goal is to identify relevant posts. I want you to analyze the content and determine if it's relevant. I want you to score it from 0 to 10 and explain briefly why. here are the rules, right? You give low scores to posts that are about job posts. I don't want to engage with those. Give low scores if the author is a company rather than a person. Give high scores if the post relates to my areas of interest. And, my audience is such and such. Here's the post content that's coming from the spreadsheet. Now what comes out is a score. Every post that I highlighted, copy, paste, and it's 100 at a time, each is scored. This is an 8, this is a 9, this is a 2, this is a 3. I sort them, filter them out. I don't even want to touch anything below 8. Now we have the 20 comments that are interesting. Okay, we're going to take that and we're going to feed it through another prompt. You're a LinkedIn influencer. Help me write comments on this LinkedIn post from multiple angles. Here are my style requirements: 2 to 4 paragraphs, 800 characters, friendly tone, more instructions. Here's the post coming from that spreadsheet. And the output is something that looks like this. It is a post summary, what it's about, so I can quickly understand, is this relevant? Do I really want to engage with it? A link to the post, so I can go directly to that individual post that is relevant. And then 9 different angles that I can consider as inspiration: a contrarian angle, a personal anecdote, a question, something to just keep the conversation going. Because when we inject ourselves into other conversations that our audience is reading, we get more brand awareness, right? We get followers, we get that opportunity to earn their trust and have them engage with our business. And so I do this 3 times a week. Process them. It takes about 15 minutes for the whole flow for me to put out 3 to 5 comments a day. And it is a very reliable source of additional conversations for what I do. Now, do not take this the wrong way. This is not a call for you to try to automate this whole thing, because one of the important things of using generative AI is to do it responsibly. The moment we all become complete automatons and just regurgitate whatever comes out of ChatGPT, the sooner you're going to be slapped down by the community for not being authentic. So truly, the content that comes through really is just inspiration for you to riff on it, not wholesale copy paste. So just be very mindful about that. Okay, so I do have a bonus use case if we want to go into it, and it is related to using voice memos on every person that you want to follow up on and creating an automatic follow-up with them. It's a live demo, so I'll only do it if people really want to go into it, but let me finish here first. Really, the focus of today's conversation, I wanted you to come away feeling empowered and not intimidated, right? I want you to learn by doing, because that's how this stuff works. This is like 21st century alchemy. You could read this presentation, you can hear me talk about it, but the reality is you're not going to really get in there till you get your hands dirty and play with the stuff, which is why I wanted to give you this slide deck with all the step-by-step instructions. Figure it out, play it, and if you get stuck, give me a call. I'm always happy to unpack this stuff because I just love playing with this technology. Part is that garbage in, garbage out, right? You saw the concept of these contexts that we have to provide the system. If you don't give it good context, you're going to get bad outputs. And that's where that alchemy is, in playing and experimenting. And then the last point I wanted to make is, as I mentioned at the very beginning, right? This is an opportunity to be very creative with your marketing campaigns. Suddenly, because of generative AI actually helping us dream up and execute campaigns, if you could even think of it and have a conversation with generative AI about, I wonder if this would be possible, it will tell you step by step how to execute it. And that's actually how the bonus use case happened. My challenge is that I have, hundreds of LinkedIn first-degree connections that I want to follow up on. And I can't just message them generic stuff because they're actually friends or people that I have a relationship with. I can't send them generic information. Now, if I sit there and actually go through each profile, look at the profile, type out a message, go to that, it'll be days or weeks of that effort. It's not realistic, right? Not to mention that I now have carpal tunnel from 30 years of using a computer. So instead, what I dreamed up of was, what if I could just take a list of connections that I want? Right, here's a bunch of people that I want to talk to, their LinkedIn connections. that I extracted from my LinkedIn. You can just export all your connections if you want.
Hey, Ron,
Yes.
before we go into, this is the new use case study, right?
Yes.
So a lot of our members are marketers, they're not technical,
Mhm.
okay? If you back up a little bit on the code that you had shown on the screen and said, you know, don't worry about, even if you don't know that code.
Yeah.
Most people don't even understand where do they put the code in.
I see.
So could you maybe, and not that everybody wants to be technical,
Mhm.
but, or maybe enough instruction to
Sure.
have that technical counterpart that they have to run something like that.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. So this image that you're seeing on the right is Google Colab, and it's called the Jupyter Notebook. All that means is that Google, for free, gives you access to their servers to create little Python scripts. Python is a programming language. And what I have done is I have already written the code for you, for us, for anyone. And just like you can share a document, a spreadsheet, a slides, you can share these code snippets. And so you can access this code, run it on Google's machines, and you can upload whatever you want to it and have it process it. And so in two different examples, one was processing an ICS calendar file. In this example, it's processing all the text that you copy paste out. You upload it into the system, and by upload, there is literally a button that says upload file. And you take that, it runs the code, and it outputs back to you a structured CSV. So it is quite literally plug and play. But like I said, if you get stuck on that part, I'm happy to walk you through it, because when I do, I'll likely record the session and then save the session and attach it to the top of this file in case anyone else has challenges or difficulties running it.
So if you're trying to do this yourself, you're gonna have to understand and download Jupyter notebooks, right?
Not download, just
Or
visit
use.
Colab.
Okay,
I'll give you an example. If this is relevant, we'll just do a quick example. So you go to colab.research.google.com. If you have a Google account, you have access to this. It's free. And this applies if it's a business account or a personal account. So you open up that file that it has been shared, and you hit connect. Okay, connect means that it's starting up a server on your behalf on Google's machines. It's not even running on your computer. You don't have to install anything. It's all done via the browser. Once it says it's connected, now you just run it by hitting play. And it's going to ask you to connect your system so that you can pipe information to it and so forth. And then you just start interacting with it. And that's it.
or you can tell your technical person, run this script.
Sure.
But I just wanted to kind of give that context.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these things, like the first time I actually used Zapier was after the session. And it just, wow, your eyes are just open. And sometimes Zapier can get a little tricky, even for me, who's pretty technical.
Yeah.
So, you know, figuring that out, if you want to learn this yourself, great. You know, we all should have some of these skills. But for some of us who have maybe some technical teams in play, you can at least give them enough instruction to say, yes, this is possible. Like I used to push my developer all the time, like, we can't do that. Like, yes, you can. Boom. Like, let's look it up. Let's do it. So,
Yeah.
okay.
And if at any time you are stuck, you can highlight this, and copy, paste it out and put it into ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT, here's the code. Walk me through each step. What is it doing? Explain to me like I'm 5. And it will. And it will tell you this is what's happening. And if you say, I'm stuck with this part, it will help you understand and run it. So you can ask the technical team, but if they're busy or aren't giving you the time of day, Jibbity, or Chad, as I like to call ChatGPT, can help you out.
Yeah. And I know we've had some comments. I don't know if we want to look at those real quick.
Sure.
And see,
Let's jump into it.
at the very,
Okay, it says use Zapier to automate that. Yes. I see we're importing pandas. Alan, nice. Yeah, pandas is great. Pandas is a specific library for managing data sets and keeping them in essentially a table format. So I see Alan is in the Python weeds.
so I think we need to be using Alan. Okay, go ahead. I'd like to.
Okay. Great, well, I'll just end with this. Now let's talk. Find me on LinkedIn. This QR code takes you to a post that I wrote in advance of coming to this AMA session. If you drop me a comment in the in that LinkedIn post, I'll know who you are so I can follow up with you and send you the slides or any other information you might need. I'll leave this up for a while and as we do our Q&A.
Yeah, we have a policy that we don't share everyone's names that's in here with the speaker, so if you can connect with him, that way you guys can stay in contact, and I follow him on LinkedIn and we've actually communicated several times, so. I also want to see that case study that you
Oh,
had,
sure,
but I want
sure.
to find out if there's any questions, because I know we're at 12:30, we're making really good time.
30 minutes of questions. It's gonna be great.
Virtually, just unmute yourself and ask a question.
Absolutely, jump in. Go for it.
I hate to be the person to like bring this up, but I've looked for a couple of companies that are super, super sensitive about what we use in ChatGPT.
Sure.
And we have so many lawyers. So I'm wondering, in the examples that you gave where you're actually inputting people's contact information, the details that you know about them that you've perhaps gathered by hand or by meeting them, like how are you handling those kind of situations? Because then you're putting it out into the universe and it may be sticky.
Absolutely. So it really depends on the context of the application that you are working within. For example, if you are a healthcare provider and are subject to HIPAA, very different scenario, and you actually could use what's called a middleware layer to pseudo-anonymize or fully anonymize that data. So what happens is before it actually goes to ChatGPT, there are third-party vendors who can take your query and say, oh, John Smith, that is a entity, that is a HIPAA record, and it will swap it out to some token. Then it'll send the token out, it'll get the response, and then it'll swap the token back when it comes back to you. So that would be a very enterprise use case for lawyers, for HIPAA compliance, for fintech compliance. If you have something much less rigorous than that, you could, of course, do that swapping yourself, or you can use various versions of these large language models that have different terms of use. So if you're all aware or not aware, if you use the chat window in ChatGPT, you are agreeing in the terms of use to convey all of that information for their future training purposes. And so there is risk, some have raised concerns that if you were to put social security numbers associated to a name, you can have what's called training data leak, where in the future I could, in the next version, ask about, oh, tell me about Rodrigo, what's their social security number? Now, the reality is that they have tons of guardrails to prevent this kind of data leak, but no system is perfect. And it is possible that it might output a social security number. That would be terrible. So to prevent that, you want to guard against these kind of scenarios. And now it turns out that Claude, Gemini, and if you run a local premise model, you're actually not, the terms of use are not that they use the data that you provide to them. So it does depend a lot on the context and what's happening. Many of the examples I showed you here today are actually driven through an API key. And for ChatGPT, if you use the terms of use on that specific modality are such that you are not agreeing to share data with them for training purposes. So, you just have to know what you're doing with it and where so that you are compliant with these systems.
That brings a good point. A lot of the new systems, like I was looking for a video caption and system, and I will go to their terms and conditions. I will put on, I have stuff, I use Safari, I'll put on the reader, copy and paste, and I put that into, I use Notebook for things like that. And I will then ask it, what are the terms and conditions? Give me the summary and ask it specific questions. Who is the owner of the data once it comes in? So asking it questions like that, you're checking your own terms and conditions before you actually use the product. So obviously I don't want to be a lawyer. Like my son's a lawyer. I don't want to be a lawyer, right? I don't want to go through all that legalese. So I'll just put it up on a notebook. I use Notebook LM and iterate and ask it the questions to get the answers that I'm looking for.
Great use case. Awesome. So I'm open to more questions, or I could share the example that I was showing earlier and give some time for people to come up with great questions. Let me see it, and no more in the chat. Well, I'll show you the example and then stimulate some discussion with all of us unless questions come up. As I was mentioning, I have all these relationships on LinkedIn, dating back to 2011. If you look at some of these people, and the challenge is that it's really hard to stay in touch with all these folks, and I want to reconnect with them. What are they up to? How could I potentially be of service to them? Now, imagine that in your use case, you have a bunch of CRM records. Your salespeople want to follow up on all kinds of opportunities. Now, if they just send a generic email, hey, just checking in, the worst. You need to have some kind of context in there that ties it back to the authentic human connection that was formed once upon a time. As I mentioned earlier, going to each record, going to each person, typing it out, I mean, it really makes my wrists and hands hurt. So I dreamed up, I was just sitting there on a Friday, 5 days ago, on Valentine's Day, and I was like, how can I make this easier, dang it? And I started having a chat with ChatGPT. I was like, hey, this is the problem. I don't mind going to the profile and getting caught up on where they're at, where they're working, what are some posts that they have. But the challenge is then writing the message. So what Chad and I brainstormed was Rod's personal voice memos. And what happens is now this does require some coding, but I'm happy to share this with you if you're interested. You could just kind of run this in a local host. What this little application does is it looks at the spreadsheet, which is acting as a lightweight database for me. I've loaded in a bunch of connections that I want to catch up with. And the first one is here, Chris Tom. And when I hit start recording, it's going to activate my microphone, open up Chris's profile. And I'm going to say, just start speaking whatever I want to say to Chris. Hey, Chris, long time no talk since, March 2011. I'll open up the messages. Do I have any messages? None. Okay. And then I'll maybe go through his posts, comments. I'll say something interesting. I'll close it. Done and next. It opens. Miyama, oh my gosh, man, it's been almost 20 years since we graduated from Yale. It's incredible to see the great work that you're doing. I see that you're now a trained coach as of 9 months ago. That is amazing. Would love to reconnect and see what you're doing at the Gates Foundation. Close it. Next. All right. Alfredo, wow, it's been a while since Columbia Law School. Would love to reconnect. I see that you're in Madrid now, etc. Keep talking. Now, what's happening in the background is that all those recordings, I sent those to Whisper. Whisper transcribed my voice, then posted it back. You can see here, these were empty a couple of minutes ago, right? And so these are now the context that I have for every record. Now put this into one of the workflows I showed you earlier, right? I'm gonna give it a template email. Hey, long time no talk, personal anecdote, let's reconnect. It's gonna take those and it's gonna send out messages to each individual person. And now I'm not like cheating here. I am actually, this is right now the worst part of generative AI systems is that they don't have our memory, they don't have our context, they don't understand anything that hasn't been given to the system. And that is the barrier. And that's why everything sounds the same. But if you can give it context from your lived authentic experience, then what generative AI is doing is just saving you the trouble and the step of mechanically putting hands on keyboard. And that I will happily take all day. So that's a little use case that I dreamed up of on Friday, coded it on Sunday in a couple of hours, and had it live running on Monday, sending out messages for me. And it's wonderful. I spent 2 hours just going through people, and it was fun because I was catching up with folks just like that. And I was able to send out about 100 personalized messages and set up meetings with people to reconnect and have virtual coffee breaks with and see what they're up to. So,
And just to confirm, you were sending them text messages or through LinkedIn?
text messages, LinkedIn, whatever channels of communication I have with them.
So it wasn't recording your voice and you doing a recording?
Correct.
It
It
was
was not
messages.
sending them my voice recording, which is a beautiful part of all this because in the moment where I was recording, you can see that I'm kind of flubbing, I'm messing up, I'm reading their profile. they don't need to hear all that. I mean, that's not, otherwise I have to be really polished about it. That's not what I want.
You're the input.
Yeah, I'm the context provider.
Yeah.
Using my voice and what I'm seeing as the context for a very personalized, authentic message.
Why didn't you have this use case when I was in Denver? Because I mean, for people who know me, 3 months ago, I started, I knew Corpus was shutting down our division. And I just started going through all of my contacts, and I manually went through, I mean, I've talked to 60 people in 3 months, right? Just to network and to figure out where my next step was, and I ended up just becoming an independent consultant. But this would have saved a lot of time.
You understand the pain then?
Yeah, so for people who are looking for a job and they're just trying to really get their.
Rehydrate their network.
Rehydrate, I like that word, rehydrate their network. Woo, yeah.
Yeah, it's open source. You're welcome to just take it and run it on your computer. If you have trouble setting it up, I'm happy to just help you do it. Okay, questions? Surely there are many. Yes.
Just on this last thing, is it part of your application that then like jumps into LinkedIn and sends those messages on your behalf too? Is that a part of the automation? You have to copy paste from there.
It doesn't. My application doesn't do that, the one I just created, because I have another vendor that I use called Phantom Buster, where it takes then all of the messages, my ChatGPT generated message and the LinkedIn URL, and it sends that final step, because I don't want to go through each person, open up messages.
And
copy,
LinkedIn's
paste.
such a bear
It's
to work
nuts.
with.
Yeah.
They don't want you to do this
Exactly.
stuff, so.
Phantom
yeah.
Buster.
They want you to use it all the time.
Yeah.
But only, yeah, that's helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone on the Zoom that wants to?
Oh, I had a question. Yeah,
Yes.
so when you're doing the, or has it gotten to a point, do you think, where when you start to do the automation and you're seeing that these people are replying and these are good feedback rates, does that then is there ability anywhere to feed that back to ChatGPT to say like, these are the messages you did well on and like optimize back to that?
Yeah.
Is that?
There's lots of ways to do that. And now we're talking like 9th degree black belt activity. But yes, the answer is yes. And there's 2 ways you could do that. One is fine tuning a model, which is a really tall order. For that, you might need hundreds of good and bad responses so that it learns the new pattern that you want. For something simpler, you can do a few shot example. So in the prompt earlier, and let me just go to a prompt, for example, here. So in the prompt, you would append at the bottom of this a few shot example that says, here are examples of messages that I have written that have worked really well. Given this input, here was the output, that got a reply. You give it 3 or 4 examples, and now it's picking up some kind of pattern from the content you have provided.
Gotcha.
Great question. Yes.
Rod, in your presentation, I thought it was really interesting. You're very agnostic about the specific tool or widget or platform, and it's more the workflow there. And even with the Gen AI models that you're using, you mentioned a little bit at the end around ChatGPT. Have a preference, and with these use cases, have you found that there are certain LLMs that work better with this type of use case and others that are falling flat? Like, do you have any perspective on that?
Definitely. I would say experiment a lot with the different models so you can find the one that's best suited for what you want it to do, because they have different technical limitations. For example, what's called the context window is very different across different LLM models. Gemini from Google, I think, has 1 million token context window. That is like hundreds of pages of content you could provide to it to generate a response. ChatGPT, I think, has a 32,000 token window. Tokens are just representations of, like, think of them almost like syllables, and a certain amount of tokens equals a word or a sentence. And so those already would separate what and when I would use those different models, right? And on top of that, these different models have different personalities almost. And when you interact with Claude versus Gemini versus ChatGPT, you're getting some different flavor of the training that they have output and the guardrails that are between you and the initial generative text that is produced sort of close to the bare metal of the server. It then pipes through a series of guardrails and shaping of the output that you see, which is why they all kind of sound a little bit different. So it depends on the situation, which one are you most familiar with and which one can do what you want it to do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was in love with Claude when it first came out, right? And I was like, ChatGPT sucks, Claude. And then I keep on experimenting on all of them. And now I'm like, well, ChatGPT has really improved how they respond. So I'm back to ChatGPT. So I always do like the $20, the monthly subscription, because I hop around. I hop around a lot, and sometimes I use, Jennifer told me about, Chat Hub, I think it's called, where you can put 4 or 5 different chat GPTs in there, and you can give the same prompt, and it'll give you different responses, you know, it'll just run it through, so you can see the different response. I think just experiment on the different ones.
And if you're gonna do this programmatically to do a large scale application or some kind of deployment where you're gonna run it through thousands of records, you could use what are called evaluation frameworks. And evaluation frameworks say, here's the same 100 inputs, here's the expected output that I have. Now run it through N number of models, 2, 3, 5, however many you want. And then evaluate the model's response against my ground truth of what I would have said for those 100 examples. Which ones get closer to what I want to say on a variety of metrics like coherence, fluency, similarity scores, and then you could see which model is best for that use case. That would be the sort of product-driven approach to doing it.
How much budget would you recommend, or like, because as you're showing all of these, right, like, so you've got Clay, you've got Apollo, you've got these calls, do you look at it as a per use? Like, if I'm spending X amount or recommending to a client X amount, like what does that budget range look like? And like what amount should people expect to spend? Because everything you're looking at here is not all free.
Yes, that's a great question. I specifically tailored a lot of what I showed you for small marketing teams. This is not your Fortune 500 corporate department with a $100,000 marketing budget. So Clay is free up to a certain number of credits. I run on the $350 a month plan, which gets, I think, 10,000 credits a month, which is more than enough for me to send 10,000 emails a month outbound.
Okay.
So if you're doing more than that, yeah, you probably will need to pay more than $350 a month, but that's relatively cheap compared to Adobe, marketing platform, HubSpot, etc. The other part that is the variable cost is the GPT credits or LLM credits you're going to use. Generally speaking, I'll show you a live example. This is actual example of my LinkedIn commenter system. And you can see here, I grabbed a bunch of authors, the content. And if we look at the score generator, this is the score generator. And it's just saying, hey, I gave it a score of 8. Here's why. Down here, you can see the cost for the token. It's 0.0068 cents per score. So I'll take that all day, right? To score hundreds of LinkedIn responses to save me potentially 30 to 60 minutes every time I have to do this. Happy to do it. Now, how about the actual generation of the content? That is $0.014, right? 1.5 cents to generate this response of LinkedIn comments with different angles, a contrarian take, a personal anecdote, playful response, etc., to help just give me some quick inspiration and then post it forward. So relatively cheap on the variable cost of the large language model credits. And the systems that you use, you don't have to use Clay. I use it because it has features that I like, but there are so many open source products. I think it's called Diffie. If you want something that is open source, free, you just run it yourself. Diffie has that orchestration element, so you can take one input, a prompt, an output, chain it to something else, a prompt, an output, chain it to something else, connect the two systems. This system here is open source. Don't have to pay anyone.
Interesting.
So,
Jennifer asked.
yes. Other questions? Yes.
I get a little bit obsessed about what's happening next, because by the time someone's saying it out loud to a room full of people, like it's only a matter of time before this is sort of common practice. So the first part of my question is like, how long before this is, like you said, 6 months, a year before this is more or less becoming common practice? And then B, what do you see as like a year from now, 2 years from now, what's the next thing coming down the pike after this level of personalization and automation?
That's a really good, like meaty question. How fast is the innovation cycle? It's fast.
Yeah,
And it's getting shorter.
yeah.
Right? Whatever lead time you have from creativity is getting narrower and narrower. So it behooves you to really learn the systems, play with them, and keep up with what's happening. And, to go back to the beginning opening thought, the more creative you could be with the system to get leverage, the better. What's coming next, I think, is a couple of things that are not scary, but it's gonna be interesting. One, of course, is how good generative video is getting. Have you all seen Omni-Human? Has anyone has seen Omni-Human? I have a post on this in my LinkedIn, and the idea was that, for the longest time, for the last year and a half, I have been sort of sounding the alarm bell that there's so much AI slop in our LinkedIn and our social media feeds, that you can just like pick it out most of the time. And it's, this person's just copy pasting. It sucks. And so video was such a clear differentiator and an opportunity to create human authentic content that people couldn't say, I got AI slop, right? I'm not going to engage with that. And then I saw this, this came out a couple of weeks ago. And from a single image and from 6 seconds of audio, it can generate amazing videos of Einstein speaking. This is generative. This is completely fake.
It also looks really fake.
Does it?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I'm the video guy in the room, but like, yeah, no, 100%. I think yeah, the eyebrows, the way his hand was really unnatural,
Yeah.
like.
Well, it's even like the era with which he would have
Yeah.
speaking, it would be grainy and that's
Sure,
clear.
But I mean, you can plug in other stuff too, like the more
Yeah.
modern stuff, I'm sure looks.
Yeah.
Like,
I think the one they don't have here, unfortunately, because it looks like it's been taken down. They have one, of a TED Talk.
Yeah.
And they have the original, and they have 3 variations that they created. And for a period of time, they don't tell you which one is which,
Yeah.
and try to get you. It's remarkably similar, and it's only going to get better,
Yeah.
right? It's this good today. You asked about the future.
Mhm.
It's going to be to the point where we take someone's image and generate the content, generate the video, generate the audio, and then what the hell's left? Like, where is the human authentic connection? So, what is coming? I think what's coming is almost a revival in human authentic connection. That's why I'm here. I think I'm here talking to humans because I think human relationships and authentic connection is going to be the differentiator. Already is, has been for a while, will continue to be even more valuable in the future because there's so much slop that is coming, and it's going to just flood our channels. So that's, I think, what's going to happen. We're going to put a premium on human authenticity and live performance. Live performance is going to be worth more than anything, and 15 years from now, or maybe less, in the same way that we listen to analog records, vinyl, and we're like, it just has a little something extra. Or you go to an antique store and you see this classic piece of furniture, like, there's a certain craftsmanship here that we just don't get from IKEA. We put some kind of premium on that. The same thing's going to happen with live performance and authentic human art and creation.
Yeah, your question made me think about, one of the Cincy AI meetings that I went to and talked about, and I'm gonna flub up the word, so if anybody remembers what it is. But there's a label that's going on, photos
Yeah.
and videos to authenticate them. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
Like the
What's it
content
called?
credential.
Yes.
Content credentials, yes. So I think a lot of that's gonna come into play as well. People are gonna be, hey, I'm credentialed. And I think that these videos, and I know I was one of the first ones, and I think Jennifer, who just joined, she was like the digital twins, and I'm like, I don't know about that. And I think it depends on how you're going to use it. If you're doing trainings over and over again, right? Why not? As long as you're transparent over this training as a digital twin, it's, 10 minutes or whatever. It sped up how you doing your training. All you need to do is provide it a script. Just depends on the context of how you're going to use it. What is this?
This is the one that has no sound, or I mean, maybe it does, but it's not, the sound isn't really what's important, but,
Supposed to pick the real one? Or-
yeah, you don't look at the captions, but there, you know, 1 is real, 3 are fake. And, but to your point, I think that's a great point, right? As long as you're transparent, right? Like, I have no shame in saying, hey, ChatGPT wrote the final product, but it was my memory of our interaction that is the content here, right? That's okay.
And there's a lot of conversations, and we had one session with Amada here talking about, you know, what are your rules for your organization? And that's where a lot of what I've really, and I think we've talked about this as well, dive into. As leaders of organizations and companies, you really do need to set the rules for your employees and rules for yourself. What is going to be my policy on using AI, telling people and being transparent over how AI has been used, especially when you're in the creative side of things and you're developing things for the consumer. Proofing things, well, anybody can proof, so why can't AI proof, right? You're just doing spell check. I mean, so there's a line that there's a blurry line, and I don't know if it's ever gonna come clean, but you know, it's just like everybody, I have a pet peeve. We've got some thing going on with disconnecting from your phones for Lent, right? Like, oh, the phone is bad. Okay, I'm sorry, my phone is not bad. It's how you use the tools in the phone that could be bad, right? The internet with your children, you've got the red light district right on your computer in your kitchen, or you have a great resource of information. It all depends on how you use it. And AI is just that, right? How are you going to use these tools? And you need to go back to your core values. So
Well said.
that's my question.
Oh,
Oh,
we have
what
a
was that,
question in the
Jen? Just speak
chat.
up.
Says, what controls are in place to prevent people from taking photos of someone and using them without authorization? And I think Jennifer's question relates to omni-human.
It does.
Yeah, none as far as I'm aware of. I mean, this is a very new model that just came out from ByteDance, the owners of TikTok. And you bet they used all that beautiful training data of all these humans putting their video data up. And no authorizations as far as I know if you're in public, right? And they take a picture of you, which is why people are concerned about deep fakes and all kinds of information and issues like that, which comes back to this point about the credentialed, authentic stamp on content. You know, did you really create it? Was it an original piece of content?
Yeah, I mean, it's 12:59, so I just want to be cautious of the time. But our pictures are everywhere. Like, people's like, who will, you know, like if you go to security, TSA, you know, they're gonna snap a picture, like, what are you gonna do with that picture? Doesn't matter. Your pictures are everywhere. Like, we're famous.
You're on film in Kroger's videotaping you, so.
Yeah.
So,
Pictures everywhere.
I know we are at time. Everybody online here, thank you so
Thank you
much.
all.
Please connect with Rod through the scan, through
Yes.
the QR code. He's on LinkedIn, very
Yep, you can find
active.
It wasn't standing? Oh, let me put it back.
If not, I will connect to
There it
you.
went.
You got it?
Wait.
Work for me. Thumbs up?
Awesome,
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. There's still a little bit of pizza and salad.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much, that was great.
Thank you.
So what do you do with Nebula? Is it Nubaro?
Nubaro?
Nubaro, sorry.